Project Farm Extra channel. This is the second part of the video on antique wrenches. So let's get the testing underway and see if these vintage wrenches are just as good or even better than the new ones. And the first test, we'll see which wrenches offer the most open-end turning power. Then we'll compare the performance of the box end of the wrench. And this brand new SnapOn combination wrench costs $43. And the brand new SnapOn weighs 88.53 grams. And the SnapOn is made in USA. And the brand new half-inch SnapOn wrench has a jaw opening at 0.503 inches. The jaw width is pretty robust at 0.2675 inches. The head on the wrench is also pretty compact from top to bottom at 1.0355 inches. If you're working in a tight space, a wrench that doesn't offer a tight fit will run out of space to work and is inefficient. And the hex key is just under a ½ inch. At 5 inches from the fulcrum, the new SnapOn is at 0.4155 inches of up and down travel, which is pretty good. The box set on the SnapOn is a 6-point and it's at 0.569 inches. In the first test, let's see how much torque the open-end combination wrenches can produce on a very soft coupling nut. I'll replace the coupling nut between testing each of the brands. To measure the torque, I'll be using a torque wrench calibration tester and I'll set the tester to measure inch-pounds. And the SnapOn combination wrench performed well and lost grip at 551.5 inch-pounds on the first attempt. I'll rotate the coupling nut 180 degrees and I'll use the undamaged part of the nut for the second attempt. The SnapOn definitely experienced a small amount of stretch at 0.0002 inches. And the SnapOn lost about 7.5% turning power on the second attempt at 510 inch-pounds. Fortunately, I was able to find a vintage SnapOn wrench to compete against the new one. I don't know how old this wrench is, but I'm guessing it's from the 1980s or 90s. All the combination wrenches we'll be testing are ½ inch. In fairness to the vintage wrench, it does have some minor wear and tear from many years of use. And the SnapOn is made in USA. The vintage SnapOn is a little bit longer, it weighs 109 grams. The vintage SnapOn has a jaw opening at 0.509 inches. The vintage SnapOn is narrower than the new SnapOn at 0.256 inches. It's also less compact at 1.1025 inches. And there's a lot more slop with the vintage SnapOn at 0.5605 inches on the open end. The 12-point box end is at 0.4055 inches of up and down travel. Compared to the new SnapOn, the vintage SnapOn has sloppier tolerances and it didn't perform nearly as well at 468.3 inch-pounds. The vintage SnapOn was probably already stretched and remained about the same. The second attempt was about the same as the first at 464.1 inch-pounds. And the SnapOn cost $43, this gear wrench only cost $8. It has an open-end, off-corner loading design to provide up to 25% more torque. We're going to test that. They claim it has a 15-degree offset for better access in tight spaces. Manufactured from alloy steel for better strength and longer tool life. And the gear wrench is made in China. And the gear wrench is very light at only 63.43 grams. And the gear wrench has the narrowest jaw opening yet at 0.5015 inches. And the gear wrench is very narrow at 0.2055 inches. The gear wrench is more compact than the vintage SnapOn at 1.0585 inches. And the off-corner loading design is causing a lot of slop at 0.6645 inches, the most yet. The box end is the same as the new SnapOn at 0.569 inches. And the gear wrench has great tolerances, but is too narrow to deliver a lot of turning power at 468.1 inch-pounds. And the gear wrench experienced the most jaw stretch yet at 0.0065 inches. And the gear wrench lost about 5% turning power on the second attempt at 443.5 inch-pounds. Competing against the gear wrench is this vintage Williams wrench. I have no idea how old this wrench is, but I think it's over 25 years of age. And the Williams seems to be in better condition than the vintage SnapOn. Both the lower and upper jaw are still in very good condition. And the Williams is made in USA. And the Williams weighs 77.83 grams. And the vintage Williams is at 0.506 inches. The vintage Williams has plenty of width at 0.26 inches and is just as compact as the gear wrench at 1.0575 inches. It also has the least amount of slop yet at 0.4055 inches on the opened end. The box end is also the best yet at 0.3445 inches. The vintage Williams really benefited from the patina finish on the first attempt at 552.4 inch-pounds to move into the lead. And the first attempt wiped out quite a bit of rust on the jaws. And the Williams jaws grew by 0.0035 inches. With the rusted jaws polished clean, the vintage Williams lost almost 100 inch-pounds of turning power at 453.9 inch-pounds. At a price of $22 is this Proto brand. The anti-slip open end of the wrench is supposed to provide higher torque. Satin finish provides corrosion resistance and slip-resistant grip. And the new Proto wrench is made in USA. And the Proto weighs 96.25 grams. And the Proto is pretty narrow at 0.502 inches. The Proto is about the same as the vintage SnapOn at 0.2535 inches. However, it is a little bit less compact than the vintage Williams at 1.064 inches. There's a little more slop with the opened end at 0.449 inches compared to the vintage Williams. The closed end is really sloppy at 0.636 inches. And the Proto has great tolerances and wide jaws and moves into the lead at 644.1 inch-pounds. Of all the new wrenches, the Proto experienced the least amount of jaw stretch yet at 0.0005 inches. And the Proto continues to perform very well on the second attempt at 634.8 inch-pounds. Competing against the Proto is this vintage Wright brand. I believe the Wright wrench was built in the 1960s or 70s. Fortunately, it's in very good condition. And the Wright is made in USA. And the Wright weighs 54.38 grams. And the vintage Wright is at 0.505 inches. The vintage Wright is pretty narrow at 0.2455 inches. It's the most compact so far at only 1.0265 inches. And 0.3005 inches for the opened end is the least amount of slop yet. And 0.4035 for the boxed end is the best yet. And the Wright is a pretty light and compact wrench, but it still performed well at 528.7 inch-pounds on the first attempt. And the vintage Wright jaws only grew by 0.002 inches. And the Wright lost almost 5% turning power on the second attempt at 502.9 inch-pounds. At a price of $10 is this Craftsman brand. It has a 15-degree box end offset for additional knuckle clearance. It has a chrome finish for corrosion resistance. And the Craftsman is made in Taiwan. And it's 95.63 grams for the Craftsman. The new Craftsman is at 0.502 inches. And the Craftsman has the widest jaws in the lineup at 0.2765 inches. It also has the most compact head yet from top to bottom at just under an inch. The open end has the least amount of slop yet at 0.197 inches. And the box end is also the best yet at 0.317 inches. And the Craftsman has wide jaws and great tolerances, and that really helped at 610.8 inch-pounds to move into second place behind the Proto. The Craftsman's jaws stretch quite a bit to 0.003 inches. And the compact head on the Craftsman must have experienced some damage on the second attempt, as it's now down over 8% to 559.2 inch-pounds. A while back I tested the SnapOn flank drive wrenches. While it's not officially part of the review, let's go ahead and test it anyway. And the SnapOn flank drive moves into the lead at 777.9 inch-pounds. Very impressive! And the SnapOn flank drive performed very well on the second attempt at 746.2 inch-pounds. So the new SnapOn flank drive came out on top at 777.9 inch-pounds on the first attempt. The Proto finished in second place at 644.1 inch-pounds, and the new Craftsman third at 610.8 inch-pounds. So the new wrenches definitely dominated the vintage wrenches. Even with the super soft coupling nut, rounding it faster can damage and stretch the jaws on a wrench. So the vintage Snap-on and the new Proto experienced the least amount of jaw stretch at 0.0005 inches. And the vintage Snap-on experienced the least amount of torque loss on the second attempt at only 0.9%. The new Proto finished in second place at only 1.4% torque loss, and Snap-on flank drive third at 4.1%. Let's once again use coupling nuts to test the box end of the wrench. And the Snap-on wrench bent and made it to 1,691 inch-pounds. The wrench did not round the nut. And the vintage 12-point performed a little bit better than the new Snap-on at 1,718 inch-pounds. The wrench became stuck on the nut, and it did cause some damage to the nut. And the gear wrench is very lightweight, and it gave up early at only 1,171 inch-pounds. The wrench is now bent, but there's a small amount of damage to the nut. And the vintage Williams is almost as strong as the vintage Snap-on at 1,707 inch-pounds. The wrench became bent, and there is some damage to the nut. And the new Proto gave up a little bit sooner than the vintage Snap-on and the Williams at 1,650 inch-pounds. The wrench experienced a small bend, and the new Proto is the first wrench to completely round the nut. And the vintage Wright also rounded the nut, but lost grip early at only 1,163 inch-pounds. There's quite a bit of damage to the nut. And the Craftsman also completely rounded the nut, but made it to 1,511 inch-pounds. There's quite a bit of damage to the nut, but the wrench did not bend. So the vintage Snap-on produced the most torque at 1,718 inch-pounds when the wrench became bent. The vintage Williams performed almost as well at 1,707 inch-pounds. The new Snap-on finished in third place at 1,691 inch-pounds. Coupling nuts are pretty soft. So let's test the metal strength of the wrenches next. I'll use pieces cut from a 1/2-inch Allen wrench in our next test. And the new Snap-on rounded the Allen key at 783.4 inch-pounds. Unfortunately, there's quite a bit of damage to the wrench. And a vintage Snap-on was already stretched pretty badly, and it gave up at 711.9 inch-pounds. The vintage Snap-on did sustain some additional damage to the upper and lower jaws. And the gear wrench has an off-corner loading design that prevented the wrench from slipping off the nut. And the gear wrench moves into the lead at 940.2 inch-pounds. However, the gear wrench did experience a tremendous amount of jaw stretch and damage, and the vintage Williams continues to outperform the gear wrench at 1,009 inch-pounds to move into the lead. Just like the gear wrench, the jaws did experience a lot of damage, and the Proto continues to perform very well at 1,032 inch-pounds to move into the lead. The Proto did experience quite a bit of damage, and the vintage Wright is pretty lightweight and gave up early at only 787.3 inch-pounds. However, the jaws did experience some damage. And the compact Craftsman continues to perform well at 993 inch-pounds to move into third place behind the vintage Williams. When it comes to jaw strength and grip, the new Proto came out on top at 1,032 inch-pounds. The vintage Williams finished in second place at 1,009 and the new Craftsman third at 993 inch-pounds. So the wrench has actually improved over the past 25 years or so. The left side of the scorecard includes some ungraded basic information about the wrenches. The right side of the scorecard includes the graded categories. I've converted the raw scores into a first through last place ranking. There's no way for me to know for sure how much impact many years of wear and tear had on tool performance. However, the Proto finished in first place in all but one test and had an overall average finish of 1.8. The new Craftsman also performed well for a budget tool with an average finish of third place. I'm pretty impressed that the vintage Williams performed so well with an average finish of 3.3. If it was a brand new wrench, who knows, maybe it would have finished in first or second place. Well, thanks for checking out the Project Farm Extra channel. I have a lot of very interesting content that just doesn't fit well on the main channel, so I hope you'll take time to come back and check out some videos in the future. Just like the main channel, all the videos in this channel are going to be viewer suggested, so if you have a video idea, I hope you'll take time to leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. Please take care and look forward to next time.